So, John, Sony finally released some PS5 information. Not a lot,
No,
admittedly,
no.
but they let us see the inside of it.
Yeah, I thought it was this video that you're talking about was interesting on a lot of levels. And one of them you just told me about before we started recording, which I had no idea there were subtitles to this video that was in Japanese. I watched the whole thing in Japanese and figured that there were no, I never even thought to look for subtitles. But of course, there are subtitles on YouTube, and I'm sure it was just a click of a button away, but I didn't realize it.
Yeah, I think I'd watched. I mean, it's about 7 minutes. I think I'd watched about 5 minutes of it, and I thought, oh, whatever, it's fine. I can look at pretty pictures of the PS5
Right.
or pretty video. And then I saw loads of people in English, like talking about what was said in the video, and I was like,
in the chat alongside the video.
Yeah, it might have been. I can't remember if it was the chat or the comments, but I saw these people and I thought, this seems an unlikely amount of people who speak both English and Japanese. So I clicked it. I clicked the little subtitle thing on YouTube and I was like, oh, right, yeah, it's got full subtitles in English and probably a bunch of other languages as well, I would assume.
Right. Well, to be fair, I don't think you really needed to listen too much to what was said, because it really was more of a show and tell than it was, or more of a show than a tell, I guess, because it was, you were there to kind of see the parts and get a sense for them. And you could follow along a lot of it. At least in the video, they were labeling things in English for the most part. So it was pretty easy to follow out what part was what and that sort of thing. But I also found it was kind of funny that Sony's tearing down their own thing. Like, can you imagine an Apple event where Apple does like a YouTube teardown, and they have one of their hardware guys, an engineer standing at a workbench taking apart an iPhone or a MacBook Pro or something? It just would never happen. And this was a Sony person who was actually doing the teardown.
Yeah, I mean, I think this is a thing with consoles. I mean, the first thing I saw of either of the consoles was the Xbox laid out, like basically taken apart exactly like this on some YouTuber's channel, I think, and they'd gone along and like, oh, look at all the bits inside. But yeah, you're totally right. Like, you're not going to get that from Apple. Like, they're never going to do that.
Right. I understand it. It lets Sony kind of control the message and show off what they want to show off. So there's an argument to be made that Apple ought to do it too, because everybody wants to know what those iFixit teardowns look like, and iFixit just kind of has their own agenda. I mean, one of their things is, they're a repair company, so they're very pro being able to fix your own gear, and which I mean, I'm not saying that that's a bad position. I'm just saying it's kind of, I don't know. It's just that they've got their own agenda, and Apple has its agenda, and I can see why Apple would want to do that and kind of get their own PR perspective out there instead of whatever iFixit's agenda happens to be.
Yeah, one of the other things this video highlighted is just how big the PS5. Like, yes. This thing is huge.
This is what I wanted to talk about first. It is enormous, right? It looks like it's fairly easy to take apart. The side panels look like they just kind of slide off.
Yeah, they definitely made it look pretty easy. I mean, a few people have been saying this for a while, but I'm convinced they're going to start selling just panels.
Oh, yeah.
Instead of selling limited edition consoles. Maybe you buy the collector's edition of, I don't know, Last of Us 3, and instead of there being a separate console, they go, oh, you buy the collector's edition and you get these two bits of plastic.
you get for $50, you get two rectangles of plastic.
Right, exactly.
With a pretty picture on the side. Yeah, that was interesting. What to me was interesting, too, was, all right, the thing is huge. And what makes it huge? Well, when they open it up, first of all, the fan is really big. And then
it's bigger than my Office fan.
Yeah,
like that is just it's huge.
I was trying to judge it when they had it open in line on the side that it's maybe, I don't know, 20% of the volume of the insides of that thing was just the fan. And then what really shocked me even more almost was after they took out the board inside, underneath that was this heatsink. And this is a huge heatsink. This heatsink,
oh, yeah.
I've never seen a heatsink like this. It was like multiple sections that were all kind of welded together and had heat tubes between them. It was a really big heatsink. I think it probably took up at least as much volume, probably more than the fan did.
Oh yeah, I mean the heatsink was like the size of a brick. Like it was it's like you say, it's like you've got 50% is just fan and heatsink, and then there's chuck in a little SSD that's like
right,
the size of my fingertip.
right, and they have some liquid metal in there, I guess, which is another heat dissipating feature. I'm not really sure what was sitting on top of that, whether it was the CPU or some other component. Maybe it was the heatsink. And it has 16 gigabytes of RAM. It's got a little slot where you can. It looks like pretty easily put in your an expansion SSD.
Yeah. I think I can't remember if we spoke about this or I was away at the weekend with some friends, so maybe I was talking with them. But I think Xbox already announced their little proprietary thing. I assume Sony are going to do the same and say, "Oh, here's a little SSD thing that you can buy for $150 or something."
Yeah. The other thing I also found interesting was right out from the get-go is you got to look at how the whole stand thing works. And it's this black plastic disc, which looks like it's not really symmetrical, I guess, but it has hooks on one side, and it screws into the base when it's vertical, when the PS5 is vertical, and you can unscrew it. There's a little area inside the base itself where you can deposit the screw, twist the base, and the screw is hidden inside. And for safekeeping, in case you want to do it vertically again, because you can then do set it up horizontally. And there was even like a little plug that you could put into the screw hole in the bottom of the PS5, and just the way that they, kind of thoughtful touch of having the screw stored inside the base when you're not using it so that you don't lose it, I thought was pretty cool. And then the base is also used to kind of hold it up when it's on its side, it looked like.
Yeah, because I guess if you look at the back panel is not like a flat bit of plastic, so it kind of looked like the stand isn't flat. It's not like a like a hockey puck or something where it's just flat on both sides. It's sort of angled a little bit to level out the PS5. But yeah, I mean this was amazingly smart. Because people are going to lose the screws. You don't want a hole in the bottom of it that's just going to collect dust and stuff. So they give you a little cap that goes in there, and if you switch it around, you just unscrew the base and switch it and put the screw back in. This was kind of amazing. I mean, it's in reality, who cares? But it's a nice bit of engineering that this is going to work like that.
Yeah, definitely. And the whole process of them the guy taking it apart completely on the video in 7 minutes, it looked like it was relatively easy to disassemble in its entirety. Now, of course, it would be easier for some people than others. You have to kind of know how much force to put on things like ribbon cables and things that are connecting different parts of the insides of this. But at least to get the side panels off, if those were being replaced, or to add in additional storage, it seemed like a fairly easy process that just about anybody could handle.
Yeah, I mean, they even, in the subtitles, I saw this afterwards, he even said about, using a vacuum to clean out the heatsink and the fan, and I was like, oh, okay, so they're, kind of expecting people to do this in, 6 months or a year or something.
That's interesting. Yeah, I heard that. Read something about dust catchers somewhere in the thing. I didn't really catch that, probably because I wasn't reading the subtitles. But yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, I think that's something to do with the little grills that are around the top edges. I think they're there to actually catch the dust rather than just be fans.
I see. Yeah, interesting. Well, it is. The thing is enormous, and it's mostly designed to dissipate heat. It's like a giant space heater with a computer in the middle of it.
Right, exactly. So something interesting has happened. So I don't know if you're aware, but it's releasing a week earlier in the US.
Oh, earlier than it was supposed to, or just earlier than the UK? You mean
earlier than the UK?
Okay,
so
right.
I think it's the US and Canada, and then everywhere else gets it a week later.
Right.
Or at least when I say everywhere else, I mean I get it. I don't know about the other countries, but
sure.
But what this means is that the launch games are actually launching on the 12th, so the US launch date. So I'm going to be getting my copy of Miles Morales Spider-Man a week before I've got my PS5.
Oh, yay. It's just like getting your iPhone case before your iPhone comes.
Right, exactly. So I'm just going to have to look at this PS5 game for a week while I just wait for it to turn up.
Oh, that's too bad. Well, at least you got a PS5 coming. I still don't have one, and I don't know. As far as I can tell, there haven't really been any more pre-orders in the US. Maybe there have been, but I've been just too busy to really deal with sitting on my computer hitting refresh over and over again.
Yeah, there definitely hasn't been a lot of movement on that. I've seen a couple of retailers in the UK sort of open pre-orders up again, but I think they're just hedging their bets at this point. I'm not convinced that
they're like
those
official.
people are even going to get their pre-orders. No.
Yeah. I don't know. Well, I guess we'll see. We'll see. I'm hopeful that I can get one before the holidays, but you never really know. And I think the demand is just going to be for this and for the Switch still really is just going to be incredibly huge just because, people are still largely stuck at home and video games is a good way to pass that time.
Oh yeah, definitely. Well, talking of pre-orders, we've got an Apple event next week, so we can all spend a bit of money there as well.
This is really going to be an expensive fall for me, I think, Rob. Maybe even more so than usual because, the rumors, of course, there's going to be an iPhone next week on the 13th. And I do that annual plan where you're basically getting a loan and paying with no interest for your phone every month. Mm-hmm. And after 12 months, you can trade it in, and then the trade-in value gets applied to the loan, and you get a new loan. And it's just, it rolls over every year. And so I'll get a new phone, and that's fine. And that probably won't move the money needle that much one way or the other. It just depends how much the phone I pick will cost compared to the one I've got now. But then there's also rumors of headphones, of mini HomePods, and I really am interested in that. I mean, I would love a set of good over-the-ear Bluetooth headphones that have the AirPods Pro chips in them that make them very easy to connect and do the noise canceling and transparency and all that jazz. So I'd love to have that for working. I'd also like to have a mini HomePod because my office space is really small. And so I have a HomePod in here and I never have it turned up more than, 15, 20% at most. And usually it's even like 10% a lot of the times. So I don't really need that big a HomePod down here. And I could take the one I've got down here, pair it as a stereo pair in my living room and use that as my main sound system for my Apple TV. So that's these you can see the rationalization is happening already. So that
you haven't even had the event yet, and you're already telling me
I'm already spending all my money. So you can see that those I've got. So now we're at phone, replacement phone, headphones, and HomePod, and then eventually we're going to see an Apple Silicon Mac, and that's one of those things where that thing's going to run iPhone and iPad apps too, and I'm going to want to try it and write about it. So that'll probably be a purchase at some point too. But I actually don't think we'll see those Macs next week. I think that'll wait, until November. I think that's just going to take a little while yet. We may see them previewed more, and we might get more information about it, but I really don't think that the Apple Silicon Macs are coming out just yet.
No, and I think, we spoke about this before we started recording, but Apple are in an interesting position now because they've been doing these pre-recorded events. Doesn't matter. They don't have to squeeze it in next week. They could do another one 2 weeks from now if they really wanted to. There's, although it's the iPhone event, so it is popular. They showed they did a watch and iPad event, and presumably it was fine. I'm sure they still sold stuff and people still watched it and the right people saw it, and the news still gets out there, so they can split it over a couple of events if they need to.
Yeah, I've been thinking about this a lot, and I've been thinking about it in kind of a very, selfish way, in the sense that I'm trying to figure out how does this impact what we do at Mac Stories, and it has kept us a lot busier. I can tell you that. I was telling you how it's just been one long sprint ever since the last event was announced. Part of that is because of the way they're doing it, because if they're online like this, Apple doesn't have to give everybody as much advance notice, and they can do more of them. So I really do think, I mean, this will be the second one in a month. We could very easily see a third sometime in November for the Apple Silicon Macs. And that has kept us busy. But I also think the other thing that kept us busy is just widgets became such a phenomenon that regardless of how it had been handled, I think that would have kept us busier than a typical fall anyway. But I also feel like it's a lot less predictable, and I don't know, in a world where nothing was predictable except for my work for what seemed like a long time in 2020, having that yanked out from under me was a little bit disconcerting because I felt like I lost all control of everything, even though I never really was in control. But yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, though, it's all been a lot of fun. I mean, it's always fun to have these events and have something to look forward to and to be busy and to have cool stuff happening that you can write about. It's just been, it has been a bit of a sprint for the last few weeks though. And it'll continue to be a sprint for another, 10 days or so. Federico's review is big iOS and iPadOS review is coming very soon. I can't really spill the beans on a date just yet. That's his prerogative to do. I have a sense for when it's going to be, but he's still working furiously to make sure that can happen. And my macOS review will come out too. I've been squeezing that one in at night and on the weekends and stuff. I was like, last Saturday was a 9.5 hour writing day for me. So,
oh wow,
yeah, I just like sat and did nothing but write from the moment I got up until when I went to bed. That's why I don't have a lot of other stuff. I did watch that teardown video, but that's about the only video I've watched in the last week.
So you've watched about 7 minutes of media.
I did. I think I watched Ted Lasso last Friday too, the final one.
Oh yeah.
Have you watched that show? It's very good.
No, I was waiting for it to finish, and now it's finished. I will sit there and watch the whole lot.
Yeah, I think it's a total of 10, and they're maybe 40 minutes each or something like that. So it won't take you that long, but
oh yeah, I'll have that done by the end of the week or something.
Oh yeah,
probably do that over a Saturday or something.
Well, when it started, I didn't watch it until like the second or third week, and I had forgotten that Apple did kind of the Hulu thing and drops a few, and then did it weekly, and I was very disappointed that I was 4 episodes in and had nothing else to watch until the following Friday. But yeah, I think it's my favorite show that they've had on TV Plus so far.
No, that's good. All I've heard is good things, so it's on my list. I'm definitely going to watch it now. It's finished.
Yeah, definitely worth watching. So I don't know. Next week we will have our phones, and I don't know. I don't really care that much about 5G personally because I'm mostly on Wi-Fi these days, being at home. But
right,
there is 5G in Chicago, but how far that reaches out into the suburbs, I don't know. I think it kind of does, but I don't know. It's at the moment, I don't think it's going to make that will make that much difference. But I'm always up for new camera features and quality, and if they do make a phone that's even bigger than the current Pro Max, I will go even bigger. Because
wow, really?
Yeah.
I've been eyeing that the mini rumor, and I'm like, I could go for that maybe. I mean, I'm still on my iPhone 10, so
all right. Well, I do like a big screen, so I don't know. I've been doing the big one now for a while, so we'll see. I mean, it is another. I think it's another like 0.3 of an inch or something. It's pretty big. It's going to be feeling like a iPad Mini pretty soon, I think.
Yeah, definitely. Well, I to be honest, I'm still not sure if I'm going to upgrade or not. It's really just I'll see. I'll look at the prices. I'll decide if I want to spend some money. If not, I'll just keep my iPhone 10 for a little bit longer.
Yeah, that makes sense. I don't, it's just, for me, it's the calculus is just weird and different than it used to be just because I write about the stuff. So it's kind of like, I got to have certain things to be able to write about them intelligently. So I don't, I like to have hot takes that are based on fact and not on just pure speculation. So.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I get that.
Yeah, but, so it's a little different. I mean, I do think a mini HomePod. I know a lot of people are like, "Who needs this?" I've heard that comment a lot on Twitter and things. I do think it's still a potentially good product for, you know, a bedroom or a small office like when I'm sitting in, or that sort of environment where you don't need something that's quite as large or, you know, able to do quite as much volume.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I think I'd be interested in a HomePod Mini as well. And I say interested. I know what I'm going to do. I'll look at all of it and then not buy any of it. And I'll just wait it out a little bit.
Yeah. I listen to music an awful lot while I work, so that I do like that. I mean, I have speakers hooked up to my computer too, but I don't know. Sometimes, you know, I get very frustrated with certain aspects of the Mac, and one is how poorly integrated the music app on the Mac is with the iOS version. Like, you can't do handoff or anything like that. And so sometimes it's just easier for me to AirPlay music from my phone to my HomePod than it is to play something on my Mac through speakers.
Yeah, oh yeah, I totally. To be honest, even now you just said that, I was like, well, I could get a HomePod for my office. That would be good. So like now I'm pre-justifying it to myself now. I'd be like, John told me I had to.
Yeah, I'm really good at this. I got Federico, and I basically got Federico and Mike both to buy iPad Minis. It only took me one good article. I finally got them though.
Well, yeah, there you go. Cool. Well, next time we speak, we should know about, what's there going to be, like 4 iPhones or something? We've got HomePods, HeadPods. They're not going to be called HeadPods, but I kind of wish they were.
You got your HeadPods
on.
That
would be amazing. Yeah, I've got my AirPods for in the air and HeadPods for at home.
Yeah.
I don't know. Anyway.
That doesn't exactly that naming scheme doesn't work for you, I don't think. But yeah, that is a good idea.
Yeah, no, I really want them to be called HeadPods, just to sort of, I don't know, people have been saying it and I hope they're called that, but they won't be.
Right.
So, cool. All right, well, we'll be back in a couple of weeks when iPhones and everything else is released.
All right, sounds good. Talk to you later, Rob.